Hi, Jay.
Hey guys, how you doing?
Good. How you doing?
Good, good. Good to see everybody.
Good to see you too. I was thinking about you and that with that last answer because just to give you guys a tiny bit of history with Jay and I, which is going to of course tie into Rich Hill. Shout out to Rich. Um, Rich Hill gave me my first, and I promise I want to make this fast so we can get to Jay. Um, Rich gave me my first sort of job in the mental training field, if you will. I was a pitching coach at Mission Junior College here in LA. I had a couple of players that I was chaperoning because they were being recruited by Rich, who was a Cal Lutheran at the time. And long story short is Rich and I just hit it off talking about the mental, and I couldn't believe somebody else was into this in 1990, or that was probably like 1992. So I started going to Cal Lu once a week, meeting with the team, and I just spent a ton of time with the team. And so wherever Rich went, I went with Rich, and hence enter Jay. So when Rich got to USD, Jay, were you there Rich's first year?
No,
What what year did you come in?
I'm not sure. 2006 was my first season, so summer of '05.
Okay. So again, I follow Rich to USD because I spoke to his team probably at least once a year, wherever Rich went, or once Rich started moving on. And I met Jay in '06, so I guess that's 19 years now. And one of the things about Jay that instantly knew I was talking to a kindred spirit was I started talking to him about these mental drills I had for hitting, and obviously was talking about mental stuff in general. And Jay was just wide-eyed and bushy-tailed. He was so into it already, and he just was so open, which I always find fascinating about coaches that I find that are brilliant, that are always they tend to always still wanna learn more. And so we just totally hit it off talking about the mental stuff, and, yeah, and just over the years, it's just been fun to watch Jay evolve from USD and then up to Reno and then Arizona. I kinda followed Jay around a little bit, haven't been out to, New Orleans, but anyway, it's really cool to have Jay on here today because, Jay's one of those guys I've seen over all these years, as I said, evolve, and then when I'm around Jay now, it's just amazing how much better I get. I just love being around Jay and listening to him. So, with no further ado, I want to do some listening now. So, Jay, it's all yours. As I've told everybody, we're starting off with 10 seconds of the bells, and what we're doing with the 10 seconds, Jay, is everybody's taking the 10 seconds to arrive and be here. So you get to be our first bell. Here we go, guys.
Good.
All yours, Jay.
Okay, awesome. Good to be on with all of you. It's no surprise. It's the day after Thanksgiving, and looking at some of the names and coaches I respect on here that you're investing in developing yourself and developing your teams and your players. So honored to be on with you. I'm going to try to be pretty succinct in what I say here, and kind of as a ode to Alan. Wanted to talk about process. He asked me to talk about culture, but developing process in a little bit of a different way, developing it as a coach and leader of a program and all of that, and really want to answer questions. I'm excited to talk baseball with you, and so I mentioned this to maybe a few of you before in individual conversations. Once I took over at Nevada after being with Coach Hill at San Diego, I kind of wanted to establish like my own thought process or own way of doing things. And, I realized really quickly that if we want our players to be locked into the process, like we have to be able to define it for them. And if you cannot define it, then you do not have a process. And so the first one I had to come up with for me was one for myself. And I made it as like, how can I make the people in our program the most successful they can possibly be by how I spend my time? And so for myself, it comes down to four things that are going to make my organization the most successful it can be of where I need to spend my time. Number one is obviously recruiting. Now, that might sound really simple. Obviously, it's about players at the top of college baseball. And so I have to have a 24/7, 365 uh, brain around getting as many talented players in our organization. I also look at that as staff, and when I put people around me, I like to try to find where are the areas that I'm deficient in as a leader, and how can I bring somebody in that can either cover those up, make me better, however you want to say it. But then I don't look at it as just players or staff as like recruiting what we need. And a lot of the times it's knowledge of improvement of how to get better. So how can I add to what we have at LSU or Arizona or Nevada or San Diego, on a daily basis? The second is develop. And I'm looking on here and I'm seeing some of the best coaches like I know. And I was just going to give a couple thoughts on development. Number one, we all have a ton of knowledge, but it only matters in how well we can translate it to the player in a way they can take it into a competitive environment and succeed with it. So our goal is to make players as good a learners of the skill that we want them to take into competition as we possibly can. Kind of a new thought that I've been working around here recently is it's not just about giving it to them so they can succeed for us. The first thing that I want to do and have our coaches do is give them their own personal motivation for why they need to do what we're trying to get them to do. Like, how is it going to positively impact them? And for us, maybe it's a little bit easier to sell because we're trying to move guys on to professional baseball. And I see Coach Strom on here. It's like, hey, when you're pitching someday for Brent Strom, he's going to ask you to be able to do this. So this just isn't a benefit for LSU winning games. This is going to be a benefit for you in your career. And I've had a lot of success with that, whether we're talking about strike zone discipline, managing the zone, uh, contact, putting the ball in the play with 2 strikes, being good at the smaller parts of the game. I'll give you a really good example of what I'm trying to talk about. So in base running, we'll have a few things that are really important, and one of them for us is advancing on the ball in the dirt. And the reason that's important is because in the SEC, you're gonna be facing every pitcher is 1, 2, or better to the plate. It's the 10 to 15 best catchers in the country. The stolen base thing is really hard to come by. But so the ball in the dirt, because pitchers do throw a lot of off speed stuff now, is a big deal. But I talk to the player that one base may be enough for us to win a game and move somebody into scoring position. But I also sell it about the scout that's in the stands that sees them advance on the ball in the dirt. And on top of all of the other stuff that is measurable in pro baseball, people are evaluating, the Joe area scout just might write down great baseball instincts when they see you make a play like that as a way to sell what we want them to develop as personal value for themselves. So for me, step one is recruit. What can I add to our program to make it better? Number two is develop. And I'm excited to talk anything baseball wise that any of you guys want to talk about in developing. The third one is win, which is what's important now and the ability to be present. And that's tough for all of us, with families, with programs, with players, with other responsibilities. And coming to LSU, like, this has been like the greatest challenge because there's a lot of things that come along with coaching at a place that cares about college baseball as much as people do. But I've really challenged myself on what's important, like, right now. I've been probably given the gift of the ability to get over this disappointment and failure pretty well. The one that is always a challenge for me is what's ahead and what's next, and not getting too far down the road and staying focused on what's important now. So my own personal process is recruit, develop, win, what's important now, and then repeat. And your ability to show up every day with a lot of self-discipline, I think, is the greatest, thing that we can give that our players, there's consistency and they know what they're going to get. And then you're giving them an opportunity for repeatability by showing great discipline. It's kind of they'll listen to what you say, but what you do speaks a lot louder. And I really believe in that. And someday when I don't do this anymore, I hope players would say, man, he was there every single day and he brought it every single day. And I think that enhances our credibility. So when you roll back to the development side, you have their attention. So that's a personal one for me of the 4 areas where I spend my time is adding value to our program through bringing in whatever it needs, players, staff, knowledge, develop. I want to be on the field. I think something I've taken a lot of pride in is not being a figurehead, head coach and being involved in offense, infield, base running, game management decisions, obviously, individual work with the players. That's where I like to be still as a head coach more than anywhere else. Staying focused on what's important, like right now. I think that's led to a lot of our postseason success is our ability as a program or organization to be able to not what's next, not what we're going to accomplish, but how we're going to do it, and then repeating it day after day after day. So that's kind of my own process. The second one is having a standard of what you want to be kind of known for in my areas as a program, and your area might be an area of your team. But ours comes down to three things that I have not changed this. I spent a lot of time during COVID, and this is while I was at Arizona. It's like, what do we want to be known for? Like, what when somebody turns on the TV and watches one of our teams play, and it came down to three very simple things for us. Is number one is fundamentals, and this was driven by a very simple principle that I learned as a very young coach. I know a lot of you probably remember Dennis Rogers, who was a longtime coach at Riverside Community College. Well, he was the guy, when I was growing up as a coach in Southern California at either Point Loma or University of San Diego. And it was a very simple thought of fundamentals decide one-run games. And then as I moved on to the Division I level and at San Diego with Coach Hill, I mean, we're playing Texas, we're playing Vanderbilt, we're playing Georgia, we're playing all these great teams. Like, if we were fundamentally sound, we could find ourselves in the game. Sometimes we would get out talented, but we would win a lot of those games. And then moving forward and get into Arizona and LSU and get into Omaha four times, like I figured this out quickly. And last year's team was the best I've ever had at this. Taking that fundamentals decide one-run games one step further, fundamentals decide one-run games against the best teams, and those are the games that are gonna determine the ceiling of your season or the ceiling of your team. And, take a lot of pride in being really, really good in one-run games. And so defining fundamentals is super simple for me and for us. It's doing common things in a very, very uncommon way, whether that's strike zone for the pitcher, flooding it, strike zone management for hitters, controlling the ball on offense and defense, running the bases, smart and aggressive, but taking the things that happen in the game the most and giving them uncommon attention and focus is going to decide one-run games, and winning those games against the best teams decides the ceiling of your season and the potential for your team. So number one is fundamentals from a program standard standpoint. Number two is competing. And again, we all put a lot of work into game prep, something I really, really enjoy. My dad was a really good football coach, and having some background of that from the time I was a young kid, I love game prep. But, anybody can prepare for an opposing pitcher. Anybody can prepare for an opposing lineup, can prepare for a style play that a team has. But I don't want anybody ever to be ready for the competitive nature of our team, the competitive nature of our pitching staff, the competitive nature of the hitters in the box. And so they can prepare for what we do. I never want somebody to be prepared for who we are as a group of competitors. And I can't remember where I said this or I've heard this is like, is your opponent, are they playing a team of players or a team of competitors? We had a great quote from our second baseman last year, Danny Dickinson, and the end of it basically said, "Do you want to be remembered as a player or as a winner?" And he was basically summarizing, his choice to come to LSU and being remembered as a winner. And I thought that defined the compete part of it really, really good. And then the third thing is character, and for me, this is, like, super simple. I'm not talking about being a choir boy. Obviously, I want our players to represent us really well, but I'm just character to me is decision making, and it boils down to a few things. Can you have a group of individuals that do what's right? Literally every decision that we make in our lives, it's not just for our players, it's us. Is this the right thing to do, yes or no? do the best you can. And I think this is one as coaches. I think, and nowadays we would all talk about the modern player of it's really important that we raise their ceiling of what they believe they're best or what they're capable of. And so creating practice environments that are super challenging, that raise the ceiling of that in a really safe environment psychologically is what we try to do. And then what I found is that that slows the game down for them, and then treating others is a way we'd like to be treated. Like humility is a big part of this. And like I said, baseball, teaches us all humility. And man, playing in the SEC and playing against the best teams, like, man, we got to have that, or we're gonna have a hard time. And so those are kind of the program things. And I wanted to talk a little bit about last year's team, obviously national championship team. Like every year, we try to carve out something that we want to be identified with and known for. So we have a personal process, a program process, and then each team has to have its own. And for last year, ours was really simple. It was like toughen together and team over me. And toughness, it's not getting in a fight unless we've needed to or anything like that. But really, and this is again an Al thing, is the ability to focus on the task at hand, no matter the circumstance. And, I get asked a lot about the last game of the finals. Opposing coach gets thrown out, multiple game suspension, I mean, ejection. Like, this is the national championship game. And everybody asked me what I was thinking as all that was going on. It was literally like, okay, who's up? Is the defense positioned? What's the pitch call going to be? When are we going to go to the pen at this point in time? And proud of my own ability to be able to do that, and want that to really follow with the players and never see them get outside themselves. And in working through Omaha, the one of the last things that I said to them was, we're going to continue to have success. This is before the last game, because as everybody else is losing theirs, we're staying in ours, and basically meaning our process and our plan. And that's all that toughness is. And, we all have to deal with different challenges, things that make things difficult. But as you're facing them, to be able to like, okay, what's my job right now? And be able to focus on that. And then togetherness and the thought of team over me. And I'm seeing pro coaches here. I'm seeing high school coaches, college coaches in here. That's a really hard thing to do nowadays. And something that we try to really work hard on and sell in recruiting is this has to be a mutually beneficial relationship. It's just as I was talking about, to get a player to invest in something that you want them to develop in, that you have to give them their own personal benefit from being able to do that. They're not just going to do that for, LSU or see Coach Savage or Reno High, or it's just nowadays it's different. They have to have something to gain, for that. And so you have my own personal, you have a program, you have a team process, and then looping back to baseball. And this is something that I feel like we do a good job of, is really outlining what we need to do well in the game in order to win. And I can go through some of that if anybody would like, from the pitching side of things, from the defensive side of things, from the offensive side of things, from the base running side of things. Like, these are the marks that we're looking to hit that we believe are important in winning. And they're not really different for, any level. I mean, they would feel like it'd be very translatable from the high school game to the college game to the pro game. But then the really important part of this is giving the players the answers to the test. And so all of our training, all of our development, all of our language has to be focused on being good at those things that we value and winning. Otherwise, we're wasting our time. I want them to study for the exact test that they're going to take, in its simplistic form in pitching. What are some things, that we want the pitchers to be good at? Number one is something that we call being undefeated at preparation. There's not an excuse for a pitcher in our program not to know how to get themselves ready to pitch. If it's a starter from day one to pitch day on day 7, they have it friggin' wired of what they're doing every single day. If it's getting ready to come in the game as a reliever, they have that completely wired, completely undefeated at preparation. That is completely controllable. The other thing that we ask of them is, hey, anybody can win when it's going good. When you got all three pitches working up, down, in and out, all flow state, all of those types of things. But what if you're a six on a day? And what we're trying to get them is to give us 100% of the six. That way there's not that, hey, I didn't have it excuse, because they know the barometer is they're giving us 100% of what they have. And then in the game, it comes down to simple. I mean, I took this from Andy McKay, who's probably the best baseball person that I know, is the strike zone is the line of scrimmage in football. And it becomes pretty simple of strike one, early and ahead, 2 out of 3, and the ability to finish the hitter off. So if you come and you watch our inter squad games or scrimmage games, we don't do it by runs. We do it by this, what we call process of winning. The pitcher literally scores on every first pitch. Strike one, point for his team. 2 out of 3 are early and ahead, point for his team. Flooding or pressuring or suffocating the strike zone is Coach Yeski's term. If it's 3 up, 3 down in less than 10, it's an automatic like +5. So get them into the process piece, and then, the results follow. We all know the batting averages after strike one or 2 out of 3 and all that type of stuff. So that has to be, measured, that way. On offense, just as an example, we have the goal of getting the leadoff hitter on 4 times a game out of the 8 innings at home, hopefully in a win, or 9 innings on the road. If we get the leadoff guy on 4 times during a game, I feel like that's really going to tip the scales towards our favor of obviously being able to score pitchers in the stretch. There's more, just kind of like he's not real comfortable if he's in the stretch at the beginning of the inning all the time. Probably the biggest predictor of winning or at least scoring runs on offense is the amount of times we can have 3 quality at bats in a row. We also try to do that 4 times per game. That's going to lead you into, hitting with runners in scoring position. So the next one is if there's a runner at second base and nobody out, that guy scores. And I mean, that's an absolute. And if I feel like, hey, I don't have a guy that can handle the bat, can manage his zone to get a pitch that he can blast to the shortstop's left or hit a double to start to create a big inning, then we'll, bring in the bunt game. And then it follows to a man at third, less than 2 outs. That guy is in. That guy is in. So we mark all of these types of things. If you were looking at like offense and like what I would call our offensive mastery boils down to like 4 things, and everything that we teach, feeds into these 4 things. Number 1 is we do not swing at balls. Like back to the strike zone is the line of scrimmage thing. That's absolutely number 1 in the first meeting. When I talk about being a successful hitter with our position players, is your ability to read and react correctly to what you see. That's going to determine your ceiling as a player. Again, giving them their own individual benefit and give you any chance to make a positive contribution to what we're doing here. Number 2 is the ability to crush mistakes. A fastball on the outer third of the plate, still the most commonly thrown pitch. Your ability to line up the barrel and deliver impact to a mistake on a ball that's over the heart of the plate. Number 3 is the ability to compete and have tough at bats with 2 strikes. Again, I've never coached at the pro level. The perception of just swing and miss or homer or bust, I certainly understand when you sit behind the plate and look at like the San Diego Padres bullpen of like, it's really hard to get 3 hits in a row. I do understand like the defense at the pro level is the infielders don't make errors. They catch and they throw everything. So why would you, sacrifice impact for contact? Our games, college baseball is different. We have aluminum bats and we don't have big league players. And I would say the same thing maybe to the high school coach. Like the value of contact is really, really high. And then the 4th thing, and we kind of call it our red zone offense, is with runners on base, the ball has to go forward. It cannot go into the catcher's glove for strike 3, and it cannot go straight up into the air. And your ability to hit with runners on base, at least in the college baseball postseason, is a huge impact. And what I've also found is, that kind of process, if you will, is transferable to big field, small field, wind blowing in, wind blowing out, pitchers duel. slugfest. Like, we never want to be pigeonholed into a way to win. So, um, that's kind of like what I wanted to talk about we all like baseball information, but I think it's important that we all like funnel it into like, hey, this is what we're trying to do. And then it can filter into how we actually teach and develop on a daily basis. So it actually fits what we're trying to do. I think if you don't have connection between what I would call a process or a philosophy and then your training and your skill development and your language, I don't think you're ever going to get the most out of it. And so we want to be concise. And one of my favorite parts of coaching is when you get a player in their 3rd or 4th year and they'll kind of mock you. Like, I don't ever take offense to that, but they'll say something that you say all of the time. And, just it's like, okay, they're getting it. I enjoy that. We have a player named Jake Brown, who's, in my opinion, will be one of the best players in the country this year. And somehow we'll be in a conversation and he'll say something that I say like all the time. And I feel like that's a really positive thing. So hopefully, just the thought of organizing your thoughts about winning baseball and player development and then funneling them all together is something that can help somebody out. And with that, I'm happy to answer as many questions as I can.
Awesome, Jay. So number one, if you have a question and you want to ask it verbally, please turn your camera on so you come onto the front page. If you want to put something in the chat room, I can read it as well. And I just want to make one comment on Jay's several hundred nuggets that he just dropped. And because I've been around Jay a lot, and what he does, I think, as well as anybody, is what he just said. He lives what he teaches, and he is relentless. So, um, whether it's communication, whether it's discipline, whether it's presence, he lives it. And I just want to throw that out there as a reminder that it is so important to not just have these great concepts, but I just think it's important that you live it, because I think anybody that's around Jay, you could feel it. It's not even something you intellectually get from him talking, you do too, but you can feel Jay's energy and the strength behind what he's saying, because he lives this as well as anybody that I've met. So Jay, just know that you are living what you teach, buddy. So with no further ado, I think in the chat I got one question. If you do have a question, just raise your hand, turn your camera on so that you come to the front page. Um, Coach, do you have this is from Joel Sato? Do you have similar points with the running game and or defense?
Yeah, let me see if I have. Um, I sent you a request to see if I can share my screen. Let's see here. Yep. All right. So this is just an example of kind of developing um developing our what we call our process of winning. So this is kind of the baseball side of it. I mentioned the preparation, dominating that, winning at a 6 or 7 out of 10, going down to coach's point on defense. Sorry, on defense, how do we win? Like, and what do we really want to be good at? I talk constantly about talking the game. My shortstop right now is named Steven Milam. He's 5'8". I wouldn't trade him for any player in the country at shortstop. He's probably 10th or 12th on this year's draft of college shortstops. Nobody impacts winning more than he does, and his largely with his ability to talk on the field and communicate what needs to happen. That allows everybody's ability to anticipate and concentrate to be really good. Positioning, the pregame work, we all have, synergy, true media, all the data points, but really being in line with that prep step and then really working quickly. I'm big on the tempo of the game. So much so I used to not let our infielders throw the ball around. We went right back to the pitcher, have changed that. Um, but that's what we want to be good at from a pre-pitch standpoint on defense. Then it kind of lends itself to really dominating the routine play, um, going through that with keeping strikes, catchers. It's about receiving and then it's about blocking because we're facing a lot of hitters that have big impact. So obviously we have to throw whatever we need to whenever we want. Infield is very simple. Control the catch, follow your throw. Outfield, we want to get behind fly balls, close on ground balls. Never force the throw to third or home with no play, and not play what we call panic baseball, keeping the double play in order. I think the ability to win the beginning of the game obviously is a big predictor in who's going to win. And so we want the opposing offense, to earn every base that they get. And then being 100% on what we call situational baseball. And if you look at all of these, like with bunt defense, like they're giving you an out. Like, so that's a lot of value. So if you just communicate and play catch, you create an out. First and third defense, nobody's been able to ever outrun the baseball. So if you have communication at catch, you're in a good spot there. Pop up priority of the pitch, you've made a pitch. So if we just communicate, go through our rules of pop-up priority, rundown, somebody's made a base running mistake. So if we just communicate, um, early ball call, positive step, we created an out, cuts and relays, and then the ability to hold runners and pickoffs. Like we want to be 100% when outs are outs. And if you're 100% on situational defense, outs become outs. This is just kind of going through the offensive stuff that I talked about. Like those are the four things like I want our offense to be good at. The game goals, one that I didn't mention is we want to get the starting pitcher out of the game before the end of the sixth inning. It's honestly really moved to the fifth inning for me, but anytime we can make a guy that they don't think is as good get 10 or more outs, I like our chances of winning the game. Like we try to recruit a lot of pitching depth, so the bullpen matchups always go in our favor. Free base war, that's pretty simple. Win the most innings, win the big innings, and then stick with it when you're not hitting. Like it's hard to hit nowadays. Like I said, I went to a Padres Mets game in August, and I was amazed at I don't know how guys even get a base hit in the big leagues sometimes. So to Coach's point, what are the base running things? It comes down to being smart and aggressive, um, really being instinctual, doing a good job pre-pitch. Where's the defense position for what we call a no catch read or the opportunity to get two bases at a time? Who's the hitter at the plate? Is the outfield position themselves differently because a guy has power? Should make it easier to get an extra base. What's the game scored in the situation? And then out rules. Like we're not that program that's going to probably steal 150 bases, and I'm not going to get up and give a talk on how to steal a bunch of bases, but we better not lose a game by running the bases unintelligently. And so for us, base running to me is not, yes, we want to be aggressive. That's the next phase of this thing. But I never want to give up outs on the bases if we're playing offensive baseball the correct way. And if we do, it's in a part where it really, really makes sense. And then the aggressive part, I mentioned dominating on the advancing on the ball in the dirt. Stolen bases, at least in our league, are hard to come by. Going full speed all the time, there's only unless you hit a homer and you know it's going over the fence, like common day or modern day player likes to celebrate their home run trot. So I stay out of the way of that. Two bases at a time is what we're trying to do, and then the attitude we're going to make the defense stop. So those are the defensive and base running metrics we're kind of targeting.
Awesome. Jay, I got another question. Um, this is from Matt Chandler. Hello, Coach. I hear you speak. My question for you is, as a coach, how do you stay in the present moment during tense situations during games? I'm a believer that the players feed off of their leader. So I believe this is a skill that most coaches overlook. Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's something that we're always working to get better at, and I think was age, if you want to call it maturity, I've gotten better at that. And um, kind of the whole modeling thing is more important than what we tell them. You know, what we show them, what we put on our own tape, if you will, is what they will follow. And it's something I take a lot of pride in now, and is having good body language and not getting too far down the road. There's a lot of college football on right now, and something that I get amazed at is the games are a lot longer than you think. Like somebody can jump up 14-0, and that doesn't mean the game's over, they're gonna win. Well, in baseball, like, we don't have a clock, and so there's always a chance, but you have no chance if you get outside of your preparation, outside of what your team needs from you in that moment. And, the one time you get to really make an impact as a coach in terms of the game is in close games at the end of the game, with your offensive or personnel decisions or obviously the bullpen. And that's obviously from a big league standpoint, the most important thing a manager can do is manage their bullpen well. So I've tried to get so good at it. Like this is my own like cue if I've done a good job of staying present even after a win, when the game is immediately over, like, I'm almost uncomfortable to come out of, like, the present moment, like, thinking. Like, it takes me a little bit like, we almost have to get on the bus and sit down before I'll, like, allow myself, and then by that time, you're already thinking about tomorrow. "Okay, who do we use? Who do they have? What do we have to do?" But, like, I take a lot of pride in that is being, right where you're at when you're there, and then helping the players do that as well. So, it takes time. It's something that I would say maybe I wasn't as good at as a young coach. But when you do a good job of it and your team wins, like, I take a lot more personal gratification and ownership in that I helped them doing what I asked them to do, which is to stay focused on the task at hand, which if you go back to where I said, like, that's modeling toughness. As a coach or a leader, that's maybe the only way you can model toughness.
That's great, Jay. Um, we got about 5 minutes, Jay, if you can sneak in 2. So the first one is, you talked about this is from John Norfolk. You talked about process in your hitters knowing the strike zone. Does technology systems play a huge role in this process? Is low strikeout, high walk ratio important to you in the recruiting process?
Good questions. As far as the technology piece, I think it's always been there, from a conceptual standpoint. And I give a lot of credit to Dan Hefner, the coach at Dallas Baptist. I think this was like 2010, 11, 12, somewhere around there. I was just listening to him speak, and it's like, want to lead the country in walks and doubles. And then it's like, okay, I get that from a runs standpoint, but let's dig into that a little further. It's like the don't swing at balls piece. If you start peeling that back, not only are you going to walk and create offensive opportunity, but you're also shrinking what you swing at. And if you're shrinking what you're swinging at, you're giving yourself for more impact and extra base hits. So the walk piece, the doubles or extra base hits piece, like that's when a light bulb kind of went on. And then it goes back to how do you teach that? And it's like, we came up with a saying last year, and this was literally last year. I've never thought of it this way. It's like 110 or take. Hit the ball 110 miles an hour or don't swing.
Mm,
And then that helped, both of those areas like get better. As far as like the technology piece, obviously the swing decisions, whether it's coming from TrackMan or whatever, like I'll put that on like our player development plans and player development reports to show them data and numbers to reinforce the same thing we've been talking about for 15 to 20 years, if you will.
mm, great. Jay, that's a good one to end on, man. I actually like this. This is a unique question. How do you manage players when they aren't playing to the team's standards? That's from Abe Chapman, by the way.
Yeah. First off, making them as clear as possible. And, you can't just do that in one team meeting. You can't do that. Like you might have said it. It doesn't mean that they heard it, got it, understood it, or are going to buy into it. So like I try to have as many individual meetings as possible. Like the bare minimum is right at the beginning of school, one in the middle of the fall semester, and then like a two-pronged end of the fall meeting. I met with all the players last Sunday and Monday, and then I'm going to meet with them again this Monday and Tuesday with a really like outline like player development plan expectation. I will meet with them again a week before opening day starts as like a communication of this is where you're at. And then I'll meet with them mid-season and then obviously postseason. And it's a lot. Like that takes a lot of time and effort. But when they know what the expectations are, it makes them a lot easier to meet. And a lot of times, what I've also learned is like bad news, as long as they know. like, and they don't have to be left to, like, wonder or ponder or think about it, and they feel like you're honest and straightforward with them, they take it a lot better. Like, just having hard conversations is part of this thing, and I was laughing because like, Moneyball was on the TV last night, and it's like "Hey, Pete, I gotta let you go." And, like, that literally, like, that was it. Like, at least it's honest and straightforward, and the player knows. So, I think communication is the most important part of that. I think that giving them a plan also. I think coaching players, we're allowed 34 players. We have a couple more than that, at least for the next year or 2. But coaching every player in the program or organization is really, really important. If all of your time, and there's times you have to make a decision, like last year in Omaha, man, we got to get Jared Jones to take great at bats. So yes, I spent more time with Jared Jones, but if the thought is over a year's time, you're investing in every player's development. When you do that and they know you're invested in their development, giving them bad news is taken a lot better, and then they hold the standards of the program. And I think, peer accountability is really important too, and developing leadership amongst young players nowadays is really hard, and I'm always trying to get better at that. But if you have the locker room upholding that, that goes a long ways as well.
Jay, number one, thank you, buddy. I I wrote some notes down here. I've never heard you say this before. Undefeated at preparation. That's powerful. Um, just thanks for embodying, man. I think what really coaches are about, and thanks for doing this. And yeah, if you guys need to get all the JJs are away through,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, I'll leave my phone number, and, yeah, happy to talk ball at any point. If it don't get back to you immediately, I promise you I will, and you're not ever offending me by sending a second text message if I don't get back to you. I promise you that. Now, some experience with that, and I value them as much as anybody. So, I just appreciate you guys being on, and good luck this year.
Thanks again, Jay. Thanks for doing this. Happy Thanksgiving, brother.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Okay, buddy. See you.